Today, we will talk about 7 unknown facts about death row. The death penalty, also known as capital punishment, goes back as far as the 18th century BCE. The Code of King Hammurabi established the first death penalty laws for 25 different crimes. The Hittites, Athenians, and Romans also utilized capital punishment. As societies change, the death penalty changes too. Here are 10 facts about the death penalty in the past, present, and where it might go from here. 1. The United States ranked 5th for the highest number of executions. The U.S. takes a spot behind China, Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia for the most executions in the world last year, sitting ahead of Yemen and the Sudan. This ranking comes as no surprise to Brian Evans, Amnesty International's acting director on the death penalty abolition campaign, who said the same countries are in the top 8 every year. But why is the U.S., which seems like somewhat of an outlier politically, culturally, and geographically, always in the top 5? Having a severe attitude toward the death penalty is only natural when you consider that the U.S. leads the world in mass incarceration of prisoners and holds records for solitary confinement and sentences to life in prison. 2. Saudi Arabia saw the execution of one man by crucifixion. Methods of execution vary between regions based on culture and available technology, and they usually include standard tactics such as hanging, beheading, firing squad, and lethal injection. In Saudi Arabia, however, one accused man was put on display after being beheaded in a practice known as crucifixion, according to the country's state news agency, SPA. The reasoning behind executions also vary around the world. In Papua New Guinea, for example, a woman and her 2 daughters are currently being held captive with charges of sorcery and risk a death sentence. It's common in the Pacific country for those accused of sorcery, especially women, to face horrific acts of violence that often end in death. 3. China keeps its execution numbers secret. The Chinese government is notorious for keeping statistics about their criminal executions secret, and in past years, Amnesty International was forced to rank China based on the minimum number of executions that researchers could confirm. Since that number was always drastically lower than the assumed reality, researchers now use reliable media sources and human rights groups, rather than official government sources, to estimate the number of executions in China. Using this data, the 2012 report estimates that thousands of criminals were killed in China last year alone, while the tally for the rest of the world combined stands at 682. 4. Japan's executions actually increased in 2012 after a long hiatus. While the global trend for the death penalty is actually declining around the world, Japan and other notable countries such as India and Pakistan resumed executing criminals after a long stint of being execution-free. At least 7 death row inmates were killed in Japan last year, ending a 20-month period without executions. Why the change? It all depends on which political party is in power, Evans said. One prime minister will come into power and abolish the practice, then the next will just reinstate it, leaving the lives of criminals in the hands of changing political whims. 5. Just 21 countries in the world carried out the death penalty last year. In the broad scope of things, only a fraction of the world's total countries, the total being 195 by National Geographic's count, actually used execution as a means of punishment last year. That number is down from 28 countries just a decade earlier, suggesting a downward trend in the global practice. The few countries that do still practice execution are situated in regional pockets around the world, Evans noted. Just 4 countries in the Middle East, for example, are responsible for all the executions in the region. And in the U.S., death penalty laws differ by state, with hotbeds of execution in the U.S. South Ohio and Arizona. In December 2012, 111 countries, or more than half the world's countries, voted in favor of a United Nations resolution that would declare a global moratorium on executions. As for the other countries, they'll come around when they take a longer look at their death penalties, Evans said, but it'll be a while. 6. Half of all death sentences from Oklahoma County and Tulsa County have been reversed or resulted in commutations or exonerations. prosecutorial misconduct has contributed to many reversals and exonerations. The prolific use of the death penalty in Oklahoma's outlier counties has also led to a high reversal rate. Half of all death sentences imposed in Oklahoma and Tulsa counties between 1972 and January 1, 2021 have been reversed in the courts or have resulted in a commutation or exoneration, making a death sentence no more statistically reliable than a coin toss. The Death Penalty Information Center has identified at least 30 instances of prosecutorial misconduct resulting in reversals or exonerations in Oklahoma. 11 of those cases were prosecuted in Oklahoma County, and 4 were prosecuted in Tulsa County. 7. Oklahoma has a history of defying Supreme Court racial justice decisions. Oklahoma has a long history of defying U.S. Supreme Court decisions that sought to promote equality before the law and the sovereignty of Native American people. After the Supreme Court ordered Oklahoma to provide Ada Lois Sipewell Fisher, a black woman rejected from the University of Oklahoma College of Law because of her race, access to law school, the state legislature created a new law school exclusively for Sipewell Fisher in a state capitol Senate room. The school had 3 instructors and no plan of study. Oklahoma reversed course only after Sipewell Fisher's attorneys brought the matter back to the Supreme Court, and the Attorney General expected the state would lose. Most recently in McGirt v. Oklahoma, the Supreme Court held that Oklahoma lacked jurisdiction to prosecute Native American people for crimes committed on tribal lands, which included much of eastern Oklahoma. On the same day it ruled in McGirt's favor, the court retroactively applied its holding to Patrick Murphy's pending case, in which Murphy, a Muskogee man, was challenging Oklahoma's jurisdiction because his crime was committed on tribal land. Deviating from the Supreme Court's holding in Murphy's case, the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals refused to retroactively apply McGirt to other cases. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.